It's impossible to watch the president for long or even to read transcripts of his statements without getting at least a little bit of concern for his mental state. His speeches tend to be long, rambling affairs where he, mid-sentence, will distract himself multiple times. And so you might worry about his fitness to be president, but he doesn't believe that you should. First though, before we get to his response to these concerns, here's a few sections out of the book about what the people around him, his supporters and backers, his aides and advisors had to say about him. Everybody was painfully aware of the increasing pace of his repetitions. It used to be inside of 30 minutes, he'd repeat word for word and expression for expression the same 3 stories. Now it was within 10 minutes. Indeed, many of his tweets were the product of his repetitions. He just couldn't stop saying something. Everyone, in his or her own way, struggled to express the baldly obvious fact that the president did not know enough, did not know what he didn't know, did not particularly care, and to boot was confident, if not serene, in his unquestioned certitudes. There was now a fair amount of back of the classroom giggling about who had called Trump what. For Steve Mnuchin and Reince Priebus, he was an idiot. For Gary Cohn, one of his friends, he was dumb as shit. For H.R. McMaster, he was a dope. The list went on. And so while I am confident that Donald Trump has not read the book, he has certainly seen some of these quotes, if on the media, if nowhere else. And so this is what he had to say in his defense. Now that Russian collusion, after 1 year of intense study, has proven to be a total hoax on the American public, the Democrats and their lapdogs, the fake news mainstream media, are taking out the old Ronald Reagan playbook and screaming mental stability and intelligence. Actually, throughout my life, my 2 greatest assets have been mental stability and being like really smart. Being like really smart. That is not a transcript. He wrote that.
This is a tweet. So
wait, let me just finish it before I get into it.
I can't.
Crooked Hillary Clinton also played these cards very hard, and as everyone knows, went down in flames. I went from very successful businessman to top TV star to president of the United States on my first try, which is an interesting note considering that he has run previously back in 2000. I think that would qualify as not smart, but genius, and a very stable genius at that.
You went bankrupt so many times that you couldn't get US bankers to give you loans, okay? You are not a smart businessman. And also, when I first heard this statement, I thought it was a verbal statement that he had made, which is why the word like was included right before he called himself a stable genius. But no, he thought it was a good idea to include the word like. Because sometimes
which he has done when he says it as well.
When he speaks it, yeah, he says it.
Yeah.
I'm like really smart, he
but
does
he
that.
Wrote
totally.
it.
He wrote it.
Yeah.
He wrote it.
Maybe that's supposed to be humility. I don't know.
I don't understand. Okay, so that's a small note. That's a small note. There was something else I wanted to touch on in regard to his tweet, but go ahead. You wanted to jump in.
I was just going to say, look, I mean, obviously we can respond to him saying that he's a genius. That's one thing. It's laughable. A genius wouldn't call themselves a genius. All of that. He called himself a very stable genius.
I would be. You mentioned this earlier, and I totally agree. Like, I would be humiliated with myself
if I had
ever
tweeted
posted
that,
something like that, like
I
about
would
how
never
smart
get
I am.
past it.
No, I mean, there's no humility, there's nothing like that. And by the way, just really quick, touching on what he said about the Ronald Reagan playbook. So toward the end of Ronald Reagan's presidency, there were signs that something was wrong, right? And then later in the 1990s, I believe it was 1994, it was proven that he had Alzheimer's. So there was no shady playbook where people were trying to defame him and his mental health. There was something wrong, people noticed it. The way, the rhetoric around it was obviously very different back then because Ronald Reagan wasn't this vicious clown like Trump is. So people talked about these issues in a different way. But to make it seem as though people were lying about Ronald Reagan's mental health is a complete and utter lie.
Right, and the fact that for him to say it's out of the playbook is sort of endorsing because they were right when they talked about that playbook. When the media and political opposition were saying that about Reagan, that he seemed a little out of it, he seemed to be forgetful, he wasn't as tuned in. They were right. He was had a deteriorating a mental acuity at that time. And so I think that's important to point out. I think too, when you heard what he said about his success, and being a genius. One of the interesting things, there were people digging these up all weekend, but of course Albert Einstein saying, "I'm not a genius," Bill Gates saying, "I'm not a genius," and then Donald Trump saying, I'm a stable genius. Which,
a very
and then
stable genius.
Charlie Pierce tweeted, Secretariat was a stable genius.
That's good.
Which I thought was really good. Also.
You want to get to the horse in the joke, but it's hard.
It's hard to, but it's there.
And so look, I mean, it could be. I mean, he doesn't have to be suffering mental decline. It could be. I mean, people are forgetful. I'm actually notoriously forgetful. My girlfriend gives me hell for it all the time because I forget things. But it's not like we have to go looking for things to be concerned about with Donald Trump. It's difficult to see him speak, to read a statement from him, to read a tweet. He never lets us go 5 minutes without seeing an example of very odd behavior. And we've got now a scoop from over the weekend that was given to Axios, one of his inner circle, giving his recent schedules that either could be an indication of this or could simply provide you some, I think, very useful information about the state of the White House these days. So here's a couple of examples of his daily schedule. Information that's generally considered classified is destroyed at the end of the day.
Oh, shocking, another leak coming from the White House.
Exactly. On Tuesday, Trump has his first meeting of the day with Chief of Staff John Kelly at 11 a.m. So his day starts at 11 a.m. It's a common refrain in these different schedules. Now, George W. Bush apparently started his day at something like 6:45, which is crazy. Barack Obama sometime between 9 and 10:30. Something like that. Okay, so maybe that's not a big problem. He then has executive time for an hour. Executive time is described as largely personal time, much of which is taken up by tweeting and TV. If you follow him on Twitter, that matches up well. So he has that for an hour. Then has an hour lunch. Then it's another 1 hour, 15 minutes of executive time. So, I mean, we're on into the afternoon with him having had one meeting with Chief of Staff John Kelly. Now, those meetings are important. You should meet with your Chief of Staff. But hitting 1, 2 p.m. at that point with only that, it's difficult for a president to get his job done at that point.
Seems like at that point he would need some executive time.
You'd think, relax a little bit. Then he meets with National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, another important meeting.
Then called him a dope.
Yes, then another 15 minutes of executive time before he takes his last meeting of the day, a meeting with head of presidential personnel Johnny DeStefano, before ending his official day at 4:15 p.m. Having done perhaps 2.5 hours of work at that point. And that's checking in with your chief of staff, checking in with the NSA advisor. I'm assuming in that first meeting he gets his intelligence briefing, which we know he doesn't pay much attention to. I mean, this is a guy who says that
this is great news, though. This is great news.
Okay.
He's presidenting less. And so the fact that he's being handled, he's doing these things, I think that the less hands-on he is to a degree, I think the better for everybody.
So I agree with you, and there's really two ways to look at it, because there's that perspective, and then there's the perspective of what, I mean, if his time is used tweeting, and we know what his tweets are like, he's essentially, stroking tension with other foreign leaders, threatening nuclear war.
Right, no, I was a little tongue in cheek. You're right, there's a serious side to it too.
And also, look, I feel partly guilty because I feel like we should stay on this story as well. But I mean, Puerto Rico, it's been 3 months since that hurricane, still no power. Kids are going back to school, I believe today.
I've got
and
an update for tomorrow's show actually about that.
Yeah, so we'll go back and cover that story. But there are all sorts of issues that are impacting American citizens right now that he is not focused on because he's too busy watching CNN, watching Fox News, and tweeting out whatever he wants Fox and Friends to support on any given day. And so all of that
or tweeting in support of whatever Fox and Friends says.
That's right.
And the reason that I bring this up is for all of his negative attributes, and he has many, I've read them before, early on, especially during the campaign, like many people credited him, people who spent time with him, with being very active, that he would do many events, he would ask for additional speeches, and when he would go and speak, he would speak for long periods of time. Considering the fact that he's not a young man, that stands out as potentially a positive attribute of the president. But now he's struggling to get through a couple of meetings before going to bed with a cheeseburger fairly early. And I agree, perhaps this is better for the country, although somebody is presidenting.
Of course, and what they're
I prefer to know who it is.
They're people behind the scenes who are doing things that we would not really love here anyway, and then they'll hand them to the president, and he'll be the PR guy for whatever that policy is. The other side of it is people who worked with him in the real estate business for years said that it was perfect that he was in the real estate business because he would get bored of one project very quickly, and then there'd be another building going up or another golf course to build or another offer or whatever it is, because they couldn't keep him interested in everything. So maybe there's a part of it, and I say this in as seriously as I can, that presidenting is getting boring to this guy now, and that's not a good thing when you are the president. Especially
when you start to think about what would draw his interest at this point. What could he do with his position of incredible power that would interest him?
Well, immigration is coming up.
Immigration is coming up. There's always the possibility that they drop some more Moabs in Afghanistan or something like that. That's a worry. As you said, tweeting to the North Korean leader, that's a scary way to spend his time. Now, I would say that it's likely that with the election coming up, he will probably find this a great opportunity to do some self-promotion by going around and doing speeches. Perhaps that will take his mind off of some of the more negative things he could be doing to this country.
But I do
think it's really fast. I think it's very important that we understand the president's frame of mind, because especially with this president, because he is not a president who is bounded by common sense, an attachment to reality, or the advice of his advisors. He's a person who dwells in his own mind, and so we need to understand it. Sorry.
And he's impulsive. You just tappered me, but whatever. It was a point you made. Now, because you wouldn't let me interrupt you, I can't think of it. But
all right.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll dispatch with it. But
probably for the best.
It's probably for the best because I couldn't have possibly had anything interesting to say.
Once we cut this video, we're going to force you off stage.
Here's what good, and then write about it afterwards. No, I don't know that people who are running for Congress are going to want him out there making speeches anyway. I mean, that's the other part of this is he might find himself really obsolete, to a lot of these people.
Well, every time he talks about how smart he is, and like now that we know what his schedule is, because again, it was leaked by his White House. It just makes me think back to a quote that he gave to that New York Times reporter where he's like, oh, I know everything about the big bills. I understand the big bills. I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to that effect.
Right.
And whenever he says something like that, you just know that it's actually, the reality is the opposite of what he's saying. Because, and the reason why I bring that up is because he is known to bully lawmakers who don't vote for the bills that he is, pushing for. But he doesn't even understand what's in that legislation. He doesn't know what was in the tax plan. He doesn't know, or the healthcare bill, exactly. And you know what they're going to move on to next? Entitlements reform, which is them planning on messing with your Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, all of these programs that we have paid into as American taxpayers. And I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to bully people who realize A, this is unpopular, and B, this is going to be deeply troubling for the American electorate, the people who are going to go out there and cast their ballots for us as politicians. So we'll see how it all plays out. But he is incredibly ignorant about legislation and foreign policy, domestic, everything. And that's the part that worries me the most.
If you want to get the whole Young Turks show every single day, become a member, tytnetwork.com/join. And once you do, you'll be saying,
I'm like a smart person.
Or you might say,
I think it's weird.
Or you might say,
oops.
No, that won't be that one. It won't be that one. It'll be great, trust me. tytnetwork.com/join.